Hold on one second. An error occurred. Let's try this again. And now we're live. Happy Monday, everybody. Happy June. Hope you're having a great start to your week and had a fabulous weekend. Welcome back to another episode of Mindset Monday, the live show where we help you improve your mindset, grow your business, and just have a great week. I'm your host, Hayden Humphrey, uplifter and mindset coach. And I'm psyched for my guest today, the conversation that we are going to have. Justin and I connected semi-recently and is one of those people I feel like it just clicked with very, very quickly. He is a really amazing person, awesome coach, multipreneur, financial advisor to financial advisors, just involved in a lot. So Justin, welcome to the show.
I appreciate you having me, Hayden. I've been looking forward to this since you reached out and asked. So this is going to be a good combo.
Definitely. For the folks who haven't had the opportunity to meet you or get to know you just yet, will you share with us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah. I'll start on the personal side. I've tried to shift away from always going to like, this is who I am, the professional. And so I'm a father and a husband. We have 3 boys, Roman, Leo, and Silas, and they are the letters that make up the name of my financial planning firm, RLS Wealth. And my wife is an entrepreneur herself. She owns a boys clothing boutique called Roman and Leo. And I always give her grief because she didn't rebrand when we had Silas, but her brand was much bigger. She had a bunch of social media following. She's like, it'll be harder to do that. So Silas actually has a collection in his name at her store. So that's that right there is the bulk of who I am. Everything revolves around them. You mentioned being Monday. We had a busy weekend of soccer and basketball all weekend long. So on the personal side, that's the most important part. On the professional side, I have worn a lot of hats within being a financial advisor. And that may not make sense, but I've been an advisor since I graduated college. So I'm coming up on 20 years, and it's been a journey as it is for everybody. But ultimately, where it really picked up was when I launched my firm back in 2015. So the summer of 2015, I launched RLS Wealth, and that's when I became an entrepreneur. And then that's where I discovered a lot about myself. And that discovery came from a lot of experimentation and kind of wandering. If you know, it was wandering. Like if an outside looking in, you're like, "Where's this guy doing? What's he's all over the place." Since I launched my firm, I've had different iterations of who I serve. I help co-found a community for financial advisors called the AGC. I spent time at a startup, and then I create a lot of content, podcasting, writing, video, all of those things, which led me to where I am today, which is kind of why you and I got connected. I went through a period, I'll call it burnout. It's not anything dramatic. There was no health scare or anything like that. It's just a realization that I was doing too much that was preventing me from live what I now call my authentic life. And when I realized all that, I started to focus more on myself, get back to taking care of myself. And all these things came into alignment that I'm sure we'll talk about. And in that alignment came the epiphany of I'm supposed to help other people do that. So I went through a training / designation last fall called the Life Planner designation, registered life planner through the Kinder Institute. And through that process, I realized I am still a financial advisor to my existing clients, but going forward, I am a life planner. I am going to focus the future of my professional days on helping people figure out who they really are. What does that life look like? And then for the financial advisors I work with, how do we match that firm that you're running to the authentic version of yourself so you can be you all of the time? And that is where I've realized the 8 years of wandering as I was building my firm was to figure out all this stuff to do this, which is really exciting.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And, I love what you shared around like, the wandering and the iterative process of it. The thing that was coming up for me as you were talking was I think that we, live in a culture that creates this expectation that, we're supposed to be able to explain what we're doing and it's supposed to all make perfect sense to everybody and, that sort of thing. And I think it can be easy to get caught in that, like this expectation of others or how we make decisions versus trusting that the things that feel right, the things that seem right to us actually are right. And
Mm-hmm.
over time, looking back, they start to make more sense in terms of how they all fit together. And I think it just allows for a much freer and much more creative career path, life path, business, because I believe, and I'm sure you're on the same page, like the life circumstances that feel the best to us and are the most authentic for us, we probably have never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing it right, you've never seen those exact circumstances before because you are a unique individual. Who you are authentically is going to be different than everybody else. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Appreciate you listening to that long ramble. It's not a short introduction, a short story, but there's so many pieces that go into it that I always like to share as much as I can, because what I hope is that, like, through us sharing our stories, there's a little piece that resonates with somebody that sends them down a path of self-exploration, because your journey is going to be different than mine. And like, we can share the high level of it, but in those details, we might leave out just being high level. There might be something that is really important for somebody else to hear.
Totally. Well, I appreciate you sharing. Justin, the question that I like to kick off this show with, that I will also ask you, what is a mindset shift that you have created recently, and what impact has it had on your business?
That's a tough one, because I haven't gone through a significant mindset change per se. I have doubled down on like mindsets that I've had my whole life and just didn't realize it. Again, looking back, things make more sense. But what I would say that I have, well, surrendering. I was gonna say what I've surrendered to is surrendering. So I've read The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, which is an awesome book. And I was already kind of moving on that path. There's a lot of things I've read that talk about, just kind of surrendering to the flow of life. And that book really sets it off. So what I have kind of accepted is that I have a vision of where I want to go. I have things that I believe I'm supposed to do and share, and I have a purpose. But how that all manifests and how it goes, I'm just going to, like, basically point my ship in the right direction, and I'm just going to surrender. And I'm going to let it take me to where I'm supposed to go, which goes to your hinting at, our intuition and our feelings, that I allow that to be kind of my guide. The tough thing though is I don't believe I can fully surrender because I have a family. There are things that I think could come up that if I was a single individual, I would easily be able to surrender to. But being responsible for my family and wanting to make sure that I give them the life that we collectively decided we wanted, that maybe I can't. It will go back to Michael Singer in the book, that he moves to the woods in a shack to just do yoga. You can't do that when you have a family. Like, that might be a nice thing to do, even just for a year. I was listening to a podcast today with a gentleman. His name's Devin Martin, and he was talking about he spent a year in a cabin. Well, that was before he got married, and the host of the podcast said, "Well, have you gone back? Do you miss it?" He says, "I long to go do it, but we have kids." So I have surrendered to where I believe I'm being pulled to go, and also realizing that part of the surrender is that I can't surrender to everything because of the family. And I say that not in a bad way. Like, I am happy to not go do everything that I might want to do because of the happiness of my family.
Totally. Yeah, that's really great. And I think that's such an interesting and important topic and concept, the idea of surrender. And I think especially talking about it in regards to entrepreneurship, business ownership, because to me, it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot. And like, on the surface, I would imagine, and I can tell from my conditioning, and I imagine that for other folks too, there's this sense of like, how does that make sense? Like, how do those things go together? The idea of surrender and the idea of business ownership. But I think that they're so important, because I think that we live in a society and a culture that is very it like minimizes the importance of feeling, and it minimizes the wisdom in feeling and in what you said, intuition. And there's this conversation to be had around how much value there is in listening to our bodies, our hearts, soul, whatever you want to call it, in terms of what feels right versus trying to solely navigate and operate from an intellectual head-based place. And I think that a lot of our culture, a lot of our conditioning centralizes the brain, centralizes intellect, and it is important. It absolutely is important. And I think that there's an element of like satisfaction and true alignment, true fulfillment to me that can really only come from being in touch with what feels right to you. Because some things don't intellectually make sense, some things don't logically make sense, but when you allow for the feeling to be the guide and you decide to go do it, you end up realizing like, wow, this is actually what I wanted. Like this is what my heart was longing for. You know, this is what my body was longing for. This is what my, you know, intuition and my gut was longing for. But you have to be willing to surrender the idea that your brain knows everything, or that living a brain centralized life is going to be the most fulfilling for you. And you have to be willing to surrender the level of control often that I think we're conditioned into or led to believe is going to be to our benefit. Because there are so many things that are out of our control, so many life circumstances and experiences and people and events and things that we couldn't possibly predict. So it becomes this conversation of, do you want to try and hold rigidly to your plans and your strategy around how you thought things were going to go? Or do you want to be in a more adaptive experience? Do you want to be in a more adaptive conversation and the willingness to say, okay, this thing has happened. And to your point, given the vision that I have, given the priorities that I have, my current circumstances, like, how do I want to move forward from here?
And I think surrendering can be just as simple as also just getting out of the way. I think that like sometimes going back to the brain, but not only that, just we feel like we have to control every aspect and that we can control every aspect. And the more that we try to control, the more we get in the way and the more we prevent ourselves from going where we ultimately want to go. And I understand why. And it's until you actually step back and just trust that things are going to work out the way they're supposed to, it's hard to understand. And that's a lot of the things I talk about. It's an experience that gets you to buy in. So to hear you and I talk about surrendering, there's any number of reasons that that's easier for us to do than for somebody else. But the reality of it wasn't easy for us. We experienced it. And once we experienced it, we understood the power of it. And then it becomes easier. But it's the first time you do it and the light bulb goes off and then it becomes easier. So, you know, you can still have control and surrender. Like the example would be, like I have a goal of like my podcast growing and my writing growing. I don't believe I can control how fast it can go. There's things I can do to hack my way to grow an audience, but like that doesn't feel right to me. So all I'm going to do is continue to create what I feel compelled to create because I love to do it. And then just trust that everything's going to work itself out. And I've done that enough times in my life to know that it will. It may not happen as quick as I want. It may happen faster. Who knows? But I'm gonna do my part and then let the universe take over and kind of complete that story.
Huge. Yeah, I love that idea. Like looking at because I agree with you. I think it's a balance. It's that balance of like, where do you enact effort? Where do you take action? Where do you do things? And then where do you surrender? Where do you let go? Where do you allow and trust and have faith? Like the analogy that popped into my brain was like, it's almost like you're being carried downstream, and like the controlling element is like trying to like dig your hands in and like force the stream to take you in a very particular direction. It just slows you down. It slows you down. It's exhausting. It's not nearly as peaceful.
That's how you drown. That's how you drown. Like, you ever go whitewater rafting? They tell you if you fall out, just surrender and let the current take you, and eventually you'll find an eddy or the water will calm. But if you struggle and fight it, you're going to tire yourself out, and then that's when you drown. Definitely. That's a great analogy.
Yeah. And, you know, even thinking about that too, like I love what you said, because I completely agree with you around this is the sort of thing that you have to experience. It's one thing to talk about it hypothetically, but it's not the same thing. Us talking about it, the theory of it, you know, hypothetically, it's not the same thing as actually experiencing it. And I'm so grateful for the experiences that I've had. You were talking a little bit about burnout. I experienced the same thing in 2021, 2022. Major burnout, major burnout, to the point where I was like, I have to move home. I got to move back to Ohio and just let go of everything I thought I was supposed to be doing, because I'm so exhausted. And I got burned out because I was trying to control. I was so obsessed with trying to manipulate outcomes and trying to manipulate the process in order to create a certain end goal that I was exhausted. I drowned in a sense. And I'm so grateful that happened. I'm so great. I am working on it, but I'm so grateful that that happened, because it's allowed for me to see the way in which I bankrupted that particular strategy, like the emptiness or like the lack of sustainability in that particular strategy. And it's allowed me to have this lived experience where I can now ask, how do I want to do this different? What does it mean for me to release control, let go of control, have more trust, allow surrender in a way that feels better? And I think that it's interesting, right? Because that's one of the decisions that you have to make if you're willing to take a look at your circumstances and what's not working. And I recognize too that not everybody is. Like, not everybody is yet in a place, or may get to a place where they're willing to look at what is it that I'm doing that's contributing to the experience that I'm creating for myself, the frustration, the lack of energy, the drowning, and how do I want to live different?
I have a question for you. If you can think back to the burnout and all the control you were trying to control, were you trying to control things to be the way you wanted them to be, or the way you thought others thought they're supposed to be? And the reason I'm asking that is, I have a real good friend who planted this seed in my head, Lindsay Troxel, and she said that a lot of burnout is a result of inauthenticity. So that we get burned out trying to be this person that we're really not. And when she said that, it was like a million light bulbs went off my head. And I told her, I said, I will always give you credit for planting that seed. But I'm gonna follow this, because I think there's a lot to it with my message, what I'm thinking about. So anyways, I was just curious if part of the control was authentic to who you were, or was it something that really wasn't authentic to you, and that helped lead to the burnout?
Absolutely. I mean, I think so much of it was trying to present a particular image and trying to do things in a certain way. Like, my understanding of how I was supposed to be going about building a business, generating income, generating an audience, generating clients, living my life, whatever it was, I had particular notions about what that was supposed to be, how I was supposed to be doing it, what it was supposed to look like. And it was like, it's interesting thinking back to it, because I wasn't paying attention to the signals that my body was giving me. I wasn't paying attention to any of that. I was paying attention to, here's how it's supposed to look. So no matter how much it feels like I'm forcing myself into doing these things, no matter how little ease there is in the process, no matter how much effort I have to exert and like forcing that I have to do in order to create a certain experience, and that's just what I have to do. So it was a lot of have tos. It was a lot of have tos. It was a lot of supposed tos. It was a lot of should be's and that sort of thing. And the great part about it, and like going through that experience and then giving myself permission to stop entirely, to really just let go completely of any expectations and any notions, was on the other side of that, on the other side of the surrender and the letting go, I found a peace of mind that I recognize now. It's like, wow, I've been looking for this, my entire life. And now, knowing that, having experienced it, that's become so central to how I make decisions moving forward, because I know no matter what, I can't lose this sense of calm. I can't lose this sense of groundedness.
I was at one thing on the inauthenticity causing burnout. It's not always forced inauthenticity. It can creep into it. So like my burnout was less of me forcing me to be something that I thought others wanted me to be. And it was like my curiosity getting the best of me. So like the burnout period was when I was working at the startup. So I had my advisory firm, I had the community, and I was working at a startup that was based in California. And like, I repositioned my day so that like calendar wise, I could handle it, but mental space and everything. But I wasn't at the startup because I thought people thought I was supposed to be there. I was like, oh, this is a cool opportunity. Let me check it out. And I was ignoring, same to you. There were things I ignored that were signs saying, hey, you're doing too much. And ultimately what really helped me figure things out was I had a mentor have me write out my ideal day. And I don't know why I revisited it, but when I revisited it, I realized if I took the startup away, there was my ideal day. And so like, and I look back in time, so experiences, and this is why I want to share these things. As I look back, the startup had to happen for me to reprioritize my day, for my ideal day to actually be a possibility. So it was an important part of my journey, but I also was, if I'm being honest with myself, in hindsight, I was trying to make myself somebody that I wasn't, because I thought it was a good opportunity when I should have listened to the signals and stayed out of it. But if I didn't go there, I don't know if I would have repositioned my day to have everything. So I don't question it, but I just wanted to put that out there. It's not always like, you may not always know I'm forcing myself to do something that's not me. You might be thinking, oh, this is a great opportunity. I should probably take it because it came my way, when really it's not true to what you want. So the sooner you can figure out what you want and who you are, the easier it is to let those good opportunities that come by pass, because it's either a hell yes or a hell no. But if you don't know who you are and you don't know what you want, then it becomes easier to keep on seeking it through these opportunities.
Totally. Well, I really love that too. Like this conversation around self-knowledge, this conversation around like building the habit of and building the practice, the discipline of reflection and understanding what has happened to you and what there is to learn from those experiences. Because if you're not doing that, you're leaving so much gold on the table, and you're leaving your ideal life is on the other side of that reflection. It's on the other side of that inquiry and understanding, like, what were the things that you went through, especially the hard things that didn't work out the way that you wanted them to, or that didn't go the way that you wanted them to, and like what there is to learn for you. I get curious for you, in thinking about that experience, one of the things that you just mentioned was like ignoring the signs. For you, what do you think were the sorts of signs that you were ignoring, or that were telling you like, hey, maybe this isn't ideal or like aligned for you?
Yeah, a clear one is having an AirPod in my ear at dinner to be listening to a leadership call, and telling my family that this was short term because it's a good opportunity. This won't last forever, and it'll be worth it in the long run. And that was like me convincing myself that like I should do this because of the opportunity. But that's not like prior to that, I never would have had a call during dinner. Like family always came first. And I was lying to myself that I was present, because I was sitting at the table, but really I had an AirPod in and I was listening to a leadership call. So that's an example of a sign that is not who I am, and that's not who I ever want to be. But I became that because the opportunity was good.
Interesting. So is it like did you feel it was like a sacrificing, or like allowing, what's the word I'm looking for?
I would say
intrusions into your boundaries.
Initially I told myself it was a compromise, that I'm willing to do this extra work and maybe be a little less present because of what it could mean. But then it did intrude on, I mean, I was at a soccer tournament and had to hop on a call during one of the games. I was sitting at the end of the field. I was watching the game. I was on the call, but I can't be fully present and enjoying that game if I'm also on a call. So it was a lie to myself that I was compromising for a good opportunity, when what I should have realized was this is not something I would ever compromise on. So therefore it's not a good opportunity. And I missed it. But again, it allowed me to prioritize my day. It also allowed me to recognize allowed me to recognize fake, false, or fake good opportunities. So that I believe that like you're going to get challenged to like, okay, you say you want this life. How bad do you want it? Here's an awesome opportunity. Well, now that I've been down there before, I'm much more prepared to identify, is this aligned with what I say I want and who I am? or is this pulling me away just to test how convicted am I in my authentic life? So again, I think one of the, speaking of mindset stuff, and you mentioned earlier, things not going the way you want. I think one important mindset is just to realize that there's a lesson in everything. Like there's no such thing as failing, except for, I guess, maybe the only way you fail is if you have a quote unquote failure and you don't catch the lesson. But even in not succeeding in what you're trying to achieve, there's something that you can take from that will help you in the future. And that's something I've always tried to be aware of. And even more so going through that experience, now I'm more aware to keep me aligned with what I want, because alignment is very, very important to me. I talk about alignment of spirit, mind, and body. And then that also pulls your money into alignment as well. And you kind of hinted at that before. And that alignment helps me continue to move forward in the way that I'm supposed to. And I can tell when I get misaligned or fall out of alignment really quickly. So back to craving and wanting to keep that, I protect that and make sure that I don't fall out of alignment, because I know what can come from that.
Huge. So much gold. Thank you for sharing that. It's the thing that was coming up for me was like, I feel like so much of this work, and I feel like you agree with this, like so much of this work and so much of what I care about supporting other people in doing is being really intentional about how they make decisions. Like being really intentional about how they make decisions and like constructing, first identifying what is the current sort of decision-making apparatus that you have been utilizing, that in many ways you've probably been given, and understanding the ways in which that's not serving you. And then over time, coming to recognize and understand what kind of decision-making apparatus, what sort of orientation, what sort of skill set, what sort of mechanism do you want to use to make decisions moving forward? And like the analogy that came to mind for me as you were talking was almost like you're operating or you're flying a plane through clouds. It's like really cloudy and you can't see anything. And we oftentimes in those, I think, one way to deal with that is like, I got to get out of here. I got to like figure out some way so I can see, the path or the trail or like something along those lines, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But also like, if you're trying to get somewhere that you've never gone before, like there is no blueprint, there's no map, there's no set of instructions on like how to get there. It's going to feel really cloudy at times. And the conversation then becomes, how much do you trust your instruments? What instruments are you using? How are you utilizing them? How much do you trust them? Because ultimately, the only way to get to that place that you've never been before is to go places that you've never gone before. Not looking at others to tell you what you should be doing. It's understanding will reveal itself over, and you have to be willing to trust that and adapt when things go correctly. On failure, even in the face of confusion, face of doubt.
Requires a little bit of faith.
1000%.
Which is scary. But I think there's a quote that I love that's on my desk. It's Kendrick Lamar. He wrote this letter when he left his record label to go start doing his own. And he said, there's beauty in completion and always faith in the unknown. And like so many people are afraid of the unknown, but like the unknown excites me. Like I get excited about thinking about blazing the new trail because of what it might be. Like it doesn't scare me. And maybe I'm not going big enough to where it does scare me, but the unknown, and I just have the faith and I have the confidence in myself that whatever I set out to do, I'm going to do it. Or if I realize it's not for me, I have no problem pivoting and going back, taking the knowledge that I gained through that experience to help me as I keep on going forward. So,
absolutely.
Telling people to have faith is, it's a hard thing to say. Again, experience. So I would just encourage you to like be aware of the experiences you've had in life where you listened to your intuition, you trusted your gut and how that played out. And just like put that in the bank to build up the confidence that you can listen to those signs, listen to your body, listen to your heart, and it's going to guide you where you're supposed to go.
Huge. And gold today. Thank you so much for this conversation. Justin, for the folks who, again, maybe haven't heard of you, haven't connected with you, how can people find you? How can they work with you?
Best way is to go to justincastelli.io. So just first name, last name, .io. Everything's there. My daily notes get posted there. You can subscribe to those. The podcast goes there. So that's the one place to go to find out everything about me.
Nice. The direct link to that is in the details of this live event as well. And if you enjoyed this show and you want to go deeper with your mindset, truly becoming the creator of your own life, I encourage you to subscribe to my LinkedIn newsletter, Unscript Your Life. Every week, I'll be sharing tips, tricks, strategy stories to help you break out of the scripts keeping you stuck and get more of what you want. You can find the link to subscribe on my profile or in the comment section of this live stream. Justin, any final thoughts, comments, words of wisdom?
No, I just was going to say thank you very much. And I guess if the only final thought would be that I think all of the answers to your questions all lie within. So trust yourself, be reflective, do some soul searching, and then all the answers you need are within if you know how to find them and know how to trust them. So I guess that's what I would end with.
Huge. Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks for being a really awesome example of that, Justin.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, really good to have you here. Thanks everyone who has been watching today and the folks catching the recording later. I hope you all have an amazing week. Same to you, Justin. And I will see you all next Monday, same time, same place.
Appreciate it, Hayden. See you.